This is a station identification moment. You're listening to CPR Worldwide Media, a division of CPR Media Network, coming to you live right across the planet. Check out our website at www.cprworldwidemedia.com and our Facebook page at facebook.com/CPR Worldwide Media. This is CPR Media Network, coming to you live from the USA.
Well, looky here, a new listener. Hey, this ain't your little sister's radio station.
From all of us at CPR Worldwide Media to all of you, Merry Christmas. Hey, who put eggnog in my eggnog?
Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring to you here again. Good tidings for Christmas and a Happy New Year. We all know that Santa's coming, we all know that Santa's coming, we all know that Santa's coming, and soon he'll be here. Tidings we bring to you and your kin. Good tidings for Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
All of us at CPR Worldwide Media would like to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas.
Why do cities shine so bright? It's the glow of opportunities, of ideas bouncing off one another, of countless people, every one of us, striving to succeed. Right now, in cities everywhere, ideas are being born. New thinking that will put us in awe of what people are capable of. That's what lights cities up. And helping people and their ideas to burn even brighter, so that communities, businesses, and you and I can grow. What if a bank made that its job? For more than 200 years, Citi's job has been to help empower people and business. Now, around the world, it's wherever people gather, wherever ideas come alive. It's wherever you are. The world's city.
It's not about how many miles you can get out of the C-Max Hybrid. It's about how much life you can fit into it. The Ford C-Max Hybrid, with an EPA estimated range of 540 miles on a tank of gas, and all the room you need to enjoy the trip. Go stretch out. Go further.
Come on, Harry!
Dumb and Dumber 2 is the #1 movie in America.
Am I right? What?
Seriously, it's #1.
These guys are morons! I like her a lot.
Dumb and Dumber 2, rated PG-13, now playing.
However dark the night, however dim our hopes, the light is always there within you.
His family gave him hope.
You fight harder than those other guys, and you win.
His spirit gave him strength.
We're gonna die out here.
We're not dying!
And in his darkest hour,
who is the Olympic athlete?
His faith would not be broken.
Hello, Mother and Father. This will be the first time in 2 years that you'll have heard my voice. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Your loving son, Louis.
On Christmas Day, experience the unbelievable true story of one man's journey home.
You can take it. You can make it. Just gotta believe you can.
If I can take it, I can make it.
Unbroken, rated PG-13, Christmas Day.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Welcome to the State Legislators Roundtable. Your host will be Charles Kacprowicz, Executive Director of Citizen Initiatives and Countermand Amendment. Our special legislator guests will be discussing important issues in their states that relate to federal encroachment on states' rights. The nonpartisan Article 5 single-issue countermand amendment can remedy many states' issues peacefully without the consent of Congress, the courts, or the executive branch. We will reclaim our constitutional republic soon. The nonpartisan countermand amendment is the missing piece of the Article 5 puzzle. Our nation is coming apart at the seams. So, we are countermanding.
Welcome, folks, to the State Legislators Roundtable. I am Charles Kacprowicz, Executive Director for Citizen Initiatives and the Countermand Amendment. In the roundtable, we have discussions with state legislators and community leaders that center around critical issues in the states as they relate to federal encroachment on states' rights and how the nonpartisan Countermand Amendment can remedy many of these issues safely and quickly. This is not a gotcha forum. We are not here to back our guests into a corner. We encourage serious discussions of issues important to our guests and their states. On our roundtable, we have Sandy Toth, our Executive Coordinator and Georgia State Director, Mike Coombs, National Director and Alaska State Director, and Kelly Gordon, National Coordinator, Texas State Director, and Producer. And I might say Mike Coombs is our Alaska State Director. We now have 15 sponsored states for the nonpartisan Article 5 Countermand Amendment. We could have many more in 30 days. We have had the honor of meeting many of the country's leading legislators on the State Legislators Roundtable, perhaps 65 or more right now. And we expect to invite many more in this coming year. Tonight, we have a different perspective. We're going to be talking about issues relating to the value of life as the founders saw it. We're going to be discussing in somewhat of a classroom fashion some of the history that is connected with the Constitution, the Articles of Confederation, and how it is that we have inherited some of the values that we have embodied in or codified inside that Constitution. I think you will find this discussion very insightful, informative, and I hope that by the time we are finished, you're going to sit back and say, wow, we have received an enormous value by just being born in America. Now,
Hey, Kelly.
The what? All right. Jefferson proposed to me to make the draft. I said, I will not. You should do it. Jefferson said, oh no, why will you not? You ought to do it. Adams said, John Adams, I will not. Jefferson said, why? Adams, reasons enough. Adams, reasons enough. Jefferson, what can be your reasons? Adams, reason first. You are a Virginian, and a Virginian ought to appear at the head of this business. Reason second, I am obnoxious. This is John Adams talking now. Suspected and unpopular. You are very much otherwise. Reason third, you can write 10 times better than I can. And Jefferson replied, well, if you are decided, I will do as well as I can. That's how our Declaration was written by Thomas Jefferson. Now, how much of my program did we get over the air, Kelly? Did it come from the beginning, or did something happen?
No, Charles, we lost you for about 3 minutes.
All right, you see, I went through the introduction and nothing happened. Okay, I'm sorry. Whatever happened, we lost it. I'm going to start folks, for those of you in the audience, I'm going to give you the introduction all over again. And I'm going to ask you to just be patient with us. We've had some problems with our server. We suspect that there have been some hackers who have been trying to disrupt the program tonight and the last 2 hours also. But we're going to actually present information to you that you're going to find very, very important. So, welcome to the State Legislators Roundtable. I am Charles Kacprowicz, Executive Director for Citizen Initiatives and the Countermand Amendment. And on the roundtable, discussions with state legislators and community leaders center around critical issues in the states as they relate to federal encroachment on states' rights and how the nonpartisan Countermand Amendment can remedy many of them safely and quickly. Tonight we have a little bit of a different forum. On our roundtable, we have Sandy Toth, our Executive Coordinator and Georgia State Director. We have Mike Coombs, National Director and Alaska State Director. Kelly Gordon, National Coordinator, Texas State Director, and Producer. We now have 15 states that are sponsoring the Countermand Amendment in their state legislatures. We hope to have many more in 30 days. We believe we can actually secure the 34 legislatures that are needed in order to force Congress to convene the Countermand Amendment Convention, maybe by the middle of next year. We have a high goal, but we think it can be done because we've accomplished a great deal already this year. Now, if you want to learn more about the Countermand Amendment, go to countermands.us. That's a plural, countermands.us. Also, invite your friends to come in and enjoy this program. Tell them to go to cprworldwidemedia.com live-radio. That is cprworldwidemedia.com/live-radio. There are many problems that we all have in understanding how valuable our Constitution is. I'm going to read something here. I'm going to read several items here tonight, but right now I'm going to read the sections at the end of the national anthem and dealing with the commitment that this nation has to God and his principles. Quote, blessed with victory and peace, may his heaven-rescued land praise the power that hath made and preserved us as a nation. Then conquer we must, when our causes it is just, and this be our motto, in God is our trust. And the star-spangled banner in triumph shall wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. We have had a history of respecting providence, as the founders would call God, recognizing that there have been some very, very wonderful influences that we could not as men have mustered, guiding in the affairs of this nation. I would like to read a section here from Skousen's book. Skousen was a scholar, he's deceased right now, who wrote some wonderful truths about our history, our constitutional history, and how we went forward with that history. First of all, where am I going here? Oh, my goodness, I have a different book. Please bear with me. I'm on page 41. All right, Aristotle. Now, why would Aristotle get in this? He was 2,000 and some years ago. But what did he say? He said, all who have meditated on the art of governing mankind are convinced that the fate of empires depends on the education of youth. Now, I want you to hear the wisdom that this man had even before Christianity started. That the art of governing mankind depends on the fate of an empire to educate their youth. And what have we done in America? We have concluded that educating our youth in the truths and values that we have as a nation are unimportant. And so as a result, in the last 50 years, 60 years, we have allowed the liberals, the progressives, the socialists, the Marxists, even the communists, the atheists to go into our schools and brainwash our young people. Now, how did it all get started in America? I want you to listen to some of the early developments that Christians created in America. Harvard in 1638. It took only 8 years from the time the Pilgrims set foot on Plymouth Rock until the Puritans, who were among the most educated people of their day, founded the first and perhaps most famous Ivy School, which was Harvard, of course. And here is part of their precept. After God had carried us safely to New England, and I'm sorry, this is not their precept, this is a little history on how they got to the Plymouth Rock. How we got to the Plymouth Rock. The precept, Harvard's Rules of Precepts, reads as follows. Everyone shall consider the main end of his life and studies to know God, and Jesus Christ, which is eternal life. Seeing the Lord giveth wisdom, everyone shall seriously by prayer in secret seek wisdom of him. Everyone shall so exercise himself in reading the scriptures twice a day, that they be ready to give an account of their proficiency therein, both in theoretical observations of language and logic, and in practical and spiritual truths. Now, they are the foundations upon which Harvard was created. They were not ashamed of Jesus Christ. They didn't look at the Christian faith as something to be embarrassed about. But what happened? We allowed Harvard to be undermined by ideologies that were contrary to the revealed truths that we have in the Word of God. Now, I'm going to just hop over to another section. And I'm now talking, and forgive me for being a little didactic tonight, but I think it's important that we understand where we came from. In a major address before the Assembly of Connecticut in 1783, Ezra Stiles, then the president of Yale, reviewed these events and suggested why near disasters time and again suddenly turned to victories. Quote, in our lowest and most dangerous state in 1776 and 1777, we sustained ourselves against the British army of 60,000 troops, commanded by the ablest generals Britain could procure throughout Europe, with a naval force of 22,000 seamen and above 80 British men of war. Who but a Washington inspired by heaven, asked Stiles, could have conceived the surprise move upon the enemy at Princeton, that Christmas Eve when Washington and his army crossed the Delaware? Who but the ruler of the winds, he asked, could have delayed British reinforcements by 3 months of contrary winds at a critical point? The point is, and let me read something else. On the French role in the revolution, he added, it is God who so ordered the balancing interest of nations as to produce an irresistible motive in the European maritime powers to take our part. And so what the president of Yale was recognizing is that there was a providential care in the formation of our nation. Now, how did some of our schools get started? We know Yale got started by Christians. We know that Harvard got started by Christians in 1638, Yale 1701. We know Princeton got started in 1746 by Christians. Dartmouth in 1754 by Christians. Columbia William and Mary, and many other Christian colleges that started by Christians. Now, how is it that we have concluded that we're not a Christian nation? How is it that the Supreme Court of the United States, I believe it was in 1898, said that we are a Christian nation in U.S. versus Trinity Church? How is it that we could have, they could have made that declaration if, in fact, we didn't have that heritage to start with? How it is? Because we believe the lies that have been said by so many over the decades, which to them and to the people who were listening, our kids, we lost sight of the truth, and the meanings of words were no longer important to us. Now, I'm going to read to you something else. The enemy within. The communist officials have long understood the need to reach the youth of a nation in order to bring about a social revolution. This is done through rewriting of textbook curricula, focusing particularly upon history, in order to redirect impressionable young minds. And in Hitler's Germany, it was the Youth Government Organization. In Romania, it was the Government Youth League. In Hungary, it was the Hungarian Association of Communist Youth. The results were identical: millions who embraced a false ideology. I just quoted you Catherine Millard out of her book, Great American Statesmen and Heroes, a lady who I met about 22 years ago and I have great admiration for. The 20th century has been the most barbaric and evil century in human history. 170 million people were murdered by their own governments from 1917 to 1987. Consider these facts. 60 million people died in nation-state civil wars. 62 million people were murdered by Communist Soviet Union. 40 million were murdered by Communist China. 16 million Jews, Slavs, Serbs, Czechs, Poles, Ukrainians, and others were unfit to live in Nazi Germany. This is incredible. But then we can add one greater atrocity to that. And that is, in America, over 50 million American unborn babies have been destroyed in the womb, and the Supreme Court sanctioned it. But even worse than that, worldwide, 700 million to 1 billion unborn babies were murdered in the womb during this period since the 1950s. Folks, there is nothing good about the evil thoughts of men. They will conceive whatever they want to conceive in order to attain an end that is for destruction. As a matter of fact, we know that the Lord said that there is a way that seems right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. Now I want to take a quick look at, and that's the kind of foundation that we have with our founders. Now I want to take a look at some of the issues that had to be dealt with by our founders when they were putting this government together. The first problem that they had to deal with is, how did they analyze government? Today we see government in terms of being left or right. We see government in terms of being Democratic or Republican. We see them in terms of ideologies going in one direction or the other. But the founders didn't think that way. The founders actually saw government in terms of size. So when they looked at the government that they were trying to form at the time they were creating the Constitution, both for the Articles of Confederation and for the Constitution itself, they saw on the one side 100% under ruler's law, which is when government is so big that no one can stop it, and the king or the monarch, or an autocracy, or an oligarchy, or some empire ruler rules, a military dictatorship. When they rule and there's no response from the people to say, no, that's not where we want to go, that's ruler's law. And when you get to 100% of ruler's law, you've got tyranny. Now, on the other side is no law. And that is when you have literally no organized body that's protecting the people. And that is anarchy. Now, the founders recognized the evil in that situation, but as they considered how to address it, they took a look at how a government should be formed. And they said that there is a better rule. It's people's law. It's in the middle of the two. And the people's law was to be used to make sure that tyranny is not going to happen, and at the same time that anarchy doesn't rule the day. And with that, they put together a constitution with checks and balances. We have that constitution today. And we are the recipients of the greatest document that has ever been created in mankind. It actually was inspired by the Bible. Did you know that Moses and the rules that he followed in organizing the children of Israel was the primary source of wisdom that the founders used, especially Jefferson, in understanding how to organize our government and to use it so that people are ruling rather than a monarch or some other dictator. And so as a result, you would have the federal government under the people's law. We have that through our elections. And we have it broken into not only 3 parts in the federal government, but we also have it broken into states. And the states have their own 3 parts. And they structure things so that the government is under people's law, the election at the ballot box. Then the thousands of counties are underneath that, tens of thousands of communities, tens of millions of families, millions of individuals. That's people's law. That's where we're at. That's what citizen initiatives and the Countermand Amendment is trying to preserve. That's why this particular amendment is so terribly, terribly important. Now, okay, I see, thank you, Kelly. When we look at another part of the issues that I wanted to get us started with tonight, I want us to look at a progression. And the progression is the challenge of the future, worldwide freedom, prosperity, and peace. How did the founders start from people's law, working all the way up to their worldwide view of what the nations of the world could also follow? What was their purpose? What was their vision? I'm going to tell you about that. And as we go to the next section, we're going to be turning this over to our producer in just a quick moment. So I want you to stay tuned. And Kelly, will you come in and take over now?
This is a station identification moment. You're listening to CPR Worldwide Media, a division of CPR Media Network, coming to you live right across the planet.
Citigold is an account from a global bank with over 200 years experience, offering international banking expertise across over 100 markets. Your dedicated investment consultant adds a unique personal touch to your banking experience. Complimentary lifestyle offers like Marhaba service and free global money transfers help you save on time and money. At the core of Citigold is your dedicated relationship manager, personally looking after your financial needs. Be it lifestyle privileges like golf, lounge access across the Middle East, or worldwide privileges, Citigold provides you with a rewarding experience. One card is all you need for all your Citibank accounts. As a Citigold client, you benefit from our international expertise and global reach. Citigold is more than an account. It's a personal banking service offering exceptional privileges, customer service and recognition worldwide. So wherever you are, Citigold will be with you.
The design of the Ford Escape is clearly intended to grab your eye. And your foot. Huh, ain't that a kick? The Ford Escape with the foot-activated liftgate. Go open up something interesting. Go further.
Come on, Harry! Dumb and Dumber 2 is the #1 movie in America.
Am I right? What?
Seriously, it's #1.
These guys are morons! I like her a lot.
Dumb and Dumber 2, rated PG-13, now playing.
However dark the night, however dim our hopes, the light is always there within you.
His family gave him hope.
You fight harder than those other guys, and you win.
His spirit gave him strength.
We're gonna die out here.
We're not dying!
And in his darkest hour,
Who is the Olympic athlete?
his faith would not be broken.
Hello, Mother and Father. This will be the first time in 2 years that you'll have heard my voice. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Your loving son, Louis.
On Christmas Day, experience the unbelievable true story of one man's journey home.
You can take it. You can make it. Just gotta believe you can.
If I can take it, I can make it.
Unbroken, rated PG-13, Christmas Day.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Welcome back, folks. This is Charles Kacprowicz one more time, and I am the Executive Director for Citizen Initiatives and the Countermand Amendment. We're going to draw a little diagram here visually and ask you to consider the importance of these steps. There are 8 steps. They're dealing with how history progressed to where we have our Constitution today. First, we were just discussing people's law, and we were discussing it from the standpoint of how the people's law can withstand tyranny on the one side and anarchy on the other. At the same time, with the people's law, you retain individual freedoms. The individual is important. You know, in my belief, the fact is that man is the crowning achievement of God's creation, that there's no creature in the whole universe more important to God than man. I believe that because I know that the Son of God had become a man in order to redeem mankind from what was going to be eternal judgment. But at the same time, the fact remains that we are important and valuable, not because you say I'm important. It's not what you perceive about me that makes me important. It's what the Lord perceives about me. So he said, I'm going to make him in my image. And so that gives me incalculable value. There is no number that you can put on how valuable each of us are. That's why human life is so important. And on top of that, that's why the founders struggled to find a way to make our government a people's law government. Not a tyranny, not an anarchy, not a government that is under some auspices of a power that deprives the people of inalienable rights, but a government that actually protects inalienable rights. That's why we have the Constitution. Now, for those of you who don't know what inalienable rights are, they are rights stipulated and defined in the Constitution that you have. And the right to life. You have that right, the right to freedom. That is to worship the God of your choice. The right to free speech. The right to peaceably assemble. The right to petition the government. They are inalienable to you, and they've been codified inside of the Constitution. And then on the other side, there's the unalienable rights. What are they? Well, they're rights that we all have that God gave us, but they are not necessarily defined in the Constitution. That's why we have Amendment 9 and Amendment 10 in the Constitution, because they allow the states and the citizens, the people, to identify those particular rights and defend them and claim them and exercise them in defiance of the federal government, or the state government for that matter, when there is an egregious wrong suffered by the people. And the remedy is rejecting those claims that are denying us those rights. Now, what about the progression of our history? Well, we started out here in America with people's law, and that was the Constitution itself. But unfortunately, before that, there were some aspects of people's law, especially in Greece and even in Anglo-Saxon nations. There were clans and little tribes and also nation states that created important parts or rights of people, even though they weren't in any way identical to what we have in the Constitution. The Anglo-Saxons and the Moses model actually extensively developed people's law. How about ruler's law? Well, freedom and natural rights were lost when England was conquered by the Normans in 1066 and became subject to ruler's law. Now you had a monarch. Now, this is a progression of history. This is how our ancestors struggled over the years, over the centuries, to find some way in which to make themselves, protect themselves and their family members so that they had some dignity, that they have some inalienable rights. Then you have the Magna Carta. The people have inalienable rights, it declared, and the king must obey those rights. Well, unfortunately, it didn't go far enough, and as a result, the Magna Carta wasn't controlling. Then there was the parliamentary system, where the parliament became the area that was to be controlled, and taxation was not going to be possible without representation. And then there was the parliamentary supremacy. That's where they ruled and the people had no rights. Then there was the Articles of Confederation. That's step number 6. And the Articles were adopted providing for individual state supremacy and a committee of the states functioning as a national Congress. Unfortunately, it didn't work because there was a unanimous vote requirement under the Articles, and one state could hold the other 12 hostage, so they couldn't get anything done. Almost cost us the revolution and the peace after the revolution. Then there's the constitutional supremacy, which we have today. The American founders established a new kind of republic based on a system of constitutional supremacy. And I am convinced, personally, and that's why I emphasize Article 5 in the Countermand Amendment, I am convinced that if we lose this Constitution, not only will we lose our inalienable rights and unenumerated enumerated rights, but the world will too. Jefferson and others, especially John Adams, were deeply concerned that our Constitution, as they were framing it, would be a model for other nations. And they wanted other nations to have the kind of freedom that they were building into our Constitution in a way that would allow them to live a peaceable life, and a life that would be based on democratic principles, and if they needed a republic, but the fact is the Constitution that they would form would have these Christian values in it. And that's what their purpose was beyond America. They wanted America to be settled right and to be a people's law nation, and they wanted the model that we were creating here in America to go beyond our shores. It was a wonderful dream, and still is existing. You're looking around the world today, and there are nations everywhere who have modeled their governments after our Constitution. But here's the 8th step, which has not happened completely. On this step, the founders hoped Americans would perfect step 7, that is the one where we as Americans have a perfected government, and begin exporting their freedom and prosperity to other nations around the world. That was the purpose, the vision that they had, and the purpose was to perfect people's law and a constitutionally based government in America so that we would be an example to the peoples around the world. Now, what has happened to us? What in the world has happened to us? How is it that we've come up so short of that goal in our generation? The founders would look at us today, and I think that they would just throw up. They would just sit and say, what kind of jerks do we have in our ancestry? What fools? Why did we allow so many people from other nations coming in and disrupt this nation and corrupt this Constitution? Why would we allow such a thing to happen? Well, it's because we're pretty stupid, that's why. We don't understand what we've inherited. Yes, we understand how to analyze the annual budget or even the monthly budget that we have, how to value a car, how to pay interest. We seem to be experts at commercialism, but we are fools when it comes to values. And therefore, we are left with a void right now. It's a void that simply is not being filled by good thinking. It's being filled by those that proclaim all kinds of deceptive ideas. And it's destroying us from within. And we have to stop it, because there is no other nation on the planet that can stop it. Now, there are a couple of passages that come to my mind. If the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? Here we have the Declaration of Independence, and your rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are embodied in that Constitution and encoded or embedded in the, I should say embodied in that declaration, but also encoded in the Constitution. And now, here we are surrendering them. We're declaring that those rights aren't all that important. I mean, the liberals and even someone, Ginsburg on the Supreme Court, she said she'd rather have the Constitution of South Africa than ours. I mean, that's the Supreme Court justice that had made that declaration. They believe in a living document. They don't believe in values. They believe that things change, and therefore you make adjustments by redefining the words. Surely the words that the founders used are not in the same sense important to us today. That's the logic that they used. But in fact, when you're dealing with values, the words never change. And when you're dealing with truth, it never changes. It goes from one generation to the next. So what's our obligation? To teach the children in the next generation? Not to let them think that they can make their own mind up when they're young. You train them up to think properly. I said to my son years and years ago, I said, my job is not to teach you how to make independent choices. My job is to teach you how to make right independent choices. And there's a big difference. You need to learn how to make right choices. Then you will have the ability to think correctly. And that's the problem that we have today in our school system. We think that just because someone learns that 1 and 1 is 2, and that there are certain sociological factors that we can analyze and come to conclusions about, or that science has come up with some ideas that make our lives a little bit more comfortable, that somehow we're smart. We're not smart. You know, the Lord said, if the Son sets you free, and that's Jesus Christ, you will be free indeed. Freedom comes from knowing the truth. We know in the book of Hosea in chapter 6 that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. What knowledge? Knowledge of God and his righteous laws. And that's the point of the Countermand Amendment. You see, we have a constitution that is being attacked severely by the left. They are constantly trying to undermine its value. We have to stop it. We have to make certain that the Constitution is not only protected, but that it in fact is used to protect itself through state legislatures. That's why Article 5 is so important to us. When we look at Article 5 and we say, where did it come from and why is it there? Well, it's there for a very good reason. The founders knew that there would be a time when government would get too big. And as a result, it provided a way, or they provided a way, through the state legislatures at that time, they provided a way for future legislatures and future citizens in the states to amend the Constitution so to push back federal government, to stop them from becoming so big that they become a tyranny. And we're very, very, very close to that right now in America. And as a result of this concept of a tyranny, if it goes any much further, we will actually lose our ability to be protected by Article 5. When those founders built Article 5, what they were saying in essence was that we do not want to abdicate our sovereign authority for future generations. We don't want to do that. We want to take that nation-state sovereignty and build it into this Constitution so that future generations of legislatures can address egregious wrongs that are being suffered by the people that the federal government won't remedy. And they did that in Article 5. And therefore, in Article 5, they made one big change. Well, two, really. One is they said that in order to amend the Constitution, unlike the Articles of Confederation, which required unanimous consent from the states, in the Constitution, in order to give the federal government a legitimate role in the affairs of our nation, they said ratification will now be can be accomplished by a three-quarter vote, or 75% of the state legislatures approving the amendment. That made the federal government stable, and it gave the states the opportunity to address egregious wrongs that the federal government is either causing or ignoring. And then the other is the idea that the convention itself is for the purpose of proposing amendments. It's not for the purpose of rewriting the Constitution. It's not for the purpose of declaring that we are going to change Amendment 1. It's not for the purpose of amending any part of the Constitution that is protecting our inalienable rights. The purpose is to address egregious wrongs suffered by the people so that our inalienable rights in the Constitution will be protected in future generations. That's the purpose of Article 5. It's not to usurp the authority of the Constitution. The founders knew that if they could leave us a Constitution, there would be two principles that they would have to identify and protect. One, the supremacy of the Constitution, and two, the perpetuity of the Constitution. Those two aspects had to be part of their thinking when they put Article 5 together. Today, you and I have been blessed with a Constitution that has Article 5 with inalienable rights, and we have the power to protect our inalienable rights. That's as simple as I can make it. So why in the world are we surrendering those rights to these yo-yos that keep telling us that we don't have them? It's because we don't want to do what's needed in order to protect them. What really bothers me about my generation, and I'm an older man at 73, but what really bothers me about my generation is they have been sitting back and literally deciding that whatever battles had to be fought to protect their rights would be done by somebody else. So let's let someone else get bloodied up. Let's get someone else in the picture so they get muddied up. That's not the way democracy and our republic works. Our republic works when the people say, hey, we are responsible for the direction of this nation, and we recognize we've inherited something so valuable and so important that we must defend it even to the point of losing our lives. That's the kind of dedication that we need from citizens. Then Article 5 will be used properly. Then we won't have such a divergence of opinion as to what Article 5 is. We won't have divergence of opinion as to what delegates are that go to the convention. We won't have any problem with understanding that the state legislatures alone are the sovereign body as elected by sovereign citizens in their states. We won't have a problem with understanding that as the state legislatures have the sovereignty, they also have deliberative authority. So they determine what the convention is going to be about, as long as it's for proposing an amendment or amendments. And so with that, they have, as a deliberative body, the right to write their own amendment. In our case, the Countermand Amendment, which is for the purpose of restoring states' rights. And I believe, by the way, if we don't restore states' rights, that we will not see our constitutional republic restored. Now, given these concepts, I implore you in the audience to understand that we are in a life and death struggle for our nation. We are in a struggle for the minds and souls of men, as President Reagan said. We really are. This is not a joke. This is a serious, serious battle that will be lost if you sit back and say you don't want any part of it. We alone in citizen initiatives cannot get the job done. I would encourage you to go to our website, countermands.us. Learn what we're doing. Learn why the Countermand Amendment is so terribly important, and then decide how you can help us. You can order a copy of my book. It's my new book that will be out probably in a week and a half. And that's Countermand Amendment, the missing piece in the Article 5 puzzle. You want to understand these concepts in a way whereby they are not only documented, but where they will become a valuable part of your library. Order a book. If you order during this period that we have on the website right now, you will get a personal autographed copy from me. And I believe that we're making history. It may turn out that this book is going to be very valuable in the days ahead. And you will, with an autographed copy, will have a very special part in that place in history. But there are places where you can join us. There's a place where you can make a donation. You know, most of the work we do has been funded by us. That is, the directors in citizen initiatives. And we do need some help. So if you want to participate in that area, hit the donate button and make a contribution. If you want to become a state director and you want to learn how you can help us in the state that you're in, hit the button, join us, and tell us how you can do that, and we will have our people contacting you. We are encouraging you to take a serious look at this enormous battle that we're dealing with. And on the other hand, I want to emphasize that we can win. I believe we will win. I don't think that this nation is lost. I don't believe God's purposes for this nation has ended. I believe there's still a chance that God will, in fact, restore us and make us a God-fearing people one more time, so we can live under the auspices of people's law, in a way whereby tyrannies won't be possible, in a way whereby anarchy won't be possible. You know, the Marxists, their biggest emphasis is always, and effort is always to create class divisions, and the communists. It's always for the purpose of creating anarchy. Why? Because in anarchy, those few who have instigated that can come to the top of the amount of confusion and begin ruling, because the people will take anybody that will rule them just to get out of the mess they're in. So that's the part of, that's the strategy of the left, and especially the Marxists. It's a terrible strategy. They have cost the world perhaps 100 million or more lives in the 20th century, murdered by communists in order to install communism. Very, very, very dangerous, folks. And they're trying to take this nation over right now. On the other hand, you have those who want to have some form of dictatorship. They don't want people's law. They think they're smarter than we are. Sometimes they're financial people. Sometimes they're political career people. Sometimes they're bureaucrats. Sometimes they're educators. But they think that you and I are too stupid to rule ourselves. We can't allow them to win. We must not allow them to win. And that's why you need to learn what we have and how we can defend it. And the Countermand Amendment is the vehicle that will make it possible for us to say to the federal government, or to the finance people, or to the Supreme Court, or to Congress, or any executive order or regulatory agency, we can say to them, you've gone too far. Now we're going to countermand it, and with 30 states, that law is rescinded. All of a sudden, we are identifying our unenumerated rights in the Constitution. We're creating inalienable rights in the sense that they are rights that God doesn't want us to surrender. That's why this is so important, and that's why with it, Amendment 10 comes alive. It becomes the battle cry whereby the people can reclaim our constitutional republic. Now, I want to read to you something that is ironic before we close this half hour. Just today, I had known about this before, but this is dated December 8th, the Christian Political Party. Excuse me a moment. Thank you. This is a statement made by President Putin of Russia. You're going to say, how did he get in this? I'm going to tell you in a moment. More than two decades on, history has become full circle as the Kremlin and its allies in the Russian Orthodox Church hurl the same allegation at the West. What's that allegation? We become a decadent nation. Now think about this. This was a communist nation, a nation that was responsible for the murder of 100 million or more people when they propagated their garbage into the into Russia, China and Southeast Asia and other places around the world, in Africa. Now here's a quote. Many Euro-Atlantic countries have moved away from their roots, including Christian values. Russian President Vladimir Putin said in a recent keynote speech, policies are being pursued that place the same level of a multi-child family and a same-sex partnership. In other words, no differentiation between traditional marriage and same-sex marriages. A faith in God is being replaced by a belief in Satan. This is a path to degradation. In his statement of the nation address in mid-December, Mr. Putin also portrayed Russia as a staunch defender of traditional values against what he depicted as the morality bankrupt West. Social and religious conservatism, the former KGB officer insisted, is the only way to prevent the world from slipping into a chaotic darkness. By the way, the heading on this article is Putin warns Obama. You've turned USA and the West into godless sewer, declares his Christian faith. Now, I don't know how all of that happened. I'm not certain how much of it is really heartfelt or real. I suspect that he is real. He couldn't talk out on defending his Christian faith if he didn't believe it. But we now have a man who was a very important, powerful man in the KGB, which was a secret service organization in Russia, communist Russia, did a lot of terrible things to a lot of Christians. I mean, the nation was literally obliterated of Christians. And yet at the same time, here we have the president of that nation that is no longer claiming to be a communist nation, telling us that our Christian faith is hanging in the balance, that our Christian values are hanging in the balance. And we can talk more about that as we go into our second hour. But I would like to just encourage you to understand this. We are dealing with the most important matters on this planet. And that is who we are, who God is, who America is, where are we going, and will we succeed in recovering from this decadent pile of sewerage that we've become accustomed to. We'll see you at the other part of at the second hour. Thank you.
This is a station identification moment. You're listening to CPR Worldwide Media, a division of CPR Media Network, coming to you live right across the planet.
My name is Christopher Perkins, Captain, United States Marine Corps. I spent 9 years in the Marines and led a team in Al-Ramadi, Iraq that risked its lives daily. Today, I'm a managing director at Citi, where I oversee a global team that provides safeguards for the $700 trillion derivatives industry.
Veterans, many of them have the right skills to be great bankers. And when they come in, they know how to make decisions, they know how to take risks, they know how to multitask. All of those things make them really great colleagues.
Just like we would go out onto the streets of Iraq, we would do an analysis of what risk we're taking and thinking about ways to mitigate it. It's no different here.
That makes them extremely valuable, and that's why we want them here helping our clients.
This industry requires our clients' trust. It requires a high degree of integrity. And so, just like the Marine Corps, your reputation is what it is, and your word is very important.
It's not about how many miles you can get out of the C-Max Hybrid. It's about how much life you can fit into it. The Ford C-Max Hybrid, with an EPA estimated range of 540 miles on a tank of gas, and all the room you need to enjoy the trip. Go stretch out. Go further.
Come on, Harry!
Dumb and Dumber 2 is the #1 movie in America.
Am I right? What?
Seriously, it's #1.
These guys are morons! I like her a lot.
Dumb and Dumber 2, rated PG-13, now playing.
However dark the night, however dim our hopes, the light is always there within you.
His family gave him hope.
You fight harder than those other guys, and you win.
His spirit gave him strength.
We're gonna die out here. We're not dying!
And in his darkest hour,
Who is the Olympic athlete?
his faith would not be broken.
Hello, Mother and Father. This will be the first time in 2 years that you'll have heard my voice. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Your loving son, Louis.
On Christmas Day, experience the unbelievable true story of one man's journey home.
You can take it. You can make it. Just gotta believe you can.
If I can take it, I can make it.
Unbroken, rated PG-13, Christmas Day.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Welcome back, folks. Again, this is Charles Kacprowicz, Executive Director for Citizen Initiatives and the Countermand Amendment. I am going to ask for those of you who would like to participate by calling in to do so at the following phone number, 956-217-0031. I'd like to repeat that. I'd love to have some of you folks call in and just share your thoughts. 956-217-0031. We'll be delighted to talk with you. I'm going to continue reading something that President Putin, Vladimir Putin, has recently said. Mr. Putin's views of the West were echoed this month by Patrick Kirill of Moscow, the leader of the Orthodox Church, who accused Western countries of engaging in the spiritual disarmament of their people. In particular, Patrick Kirill criticized laws in several European countries that prevent believers from displaying religious symbols, including crosses on necklaces at work. The general political direction of the Western political, of the elite, that is the Western political elite, bears without doubt an anti-Christian and anti-religious character, the patriarch said in comments aired on state-controlled television. We have been through an epoch of atheism, and we know what it is to live without God. Patriarch Kirill said, "We want to shout to the whole world, stop. The separation of the secular and the religious is a fatal mistake by the West." The Reverend Chaplain said, "It is a monstrous phenomenon that has occurred only in Western civilization and will kill the West, both politically and morally." Folks, did you hear that? Did you hear what the West is saying? What Russia is saying and their religious leaders about what they see over here? I don't ever want us, me or anyone associated with us, to be intimidated by liberals or Marxists who would like to shut me up. I don't really care what they think about my faith in Christ. I only care that the values that we have as a result of being a Christian nation don't be lost. How about the Ten Commandments? What do you think? How do you think they influence the peoples of the world? So I am very concerned about the direction of our nation. We're being warned by other nations. I have a friend in West Africa who is praying constantly for us and our work, and deeply concerned that we win, because he knows if we lose, he loses and his country loses. We have people from South Africa who are concerned about this. Australia. We are concerned, people from even Iran, from Syria. We have communications with people that are coming from the Middle East in several countries and other parts of Africa. We have a Vietnamese individual who is concerned about our work over here in communist Vietnam. We have people in China that are concerned about our work. Why? Because they know that America has been a light to the nations. And if we extinguish that light by losing our Christian base, they will lose too. Our Constitution is not just a bunch of words. It's not just some idea of a man sitting down and saying, well, this is good, and this is good, and this is good. No. It was inspired. It was inspired because it has the foundations are in the Word of God. They are not just idle ideas. And that makes them eternal. That makes them inalienable. And what rights it declares and what rights the Constitution protects are rights that God has given us. Even the right to govern ourselves. So take this broadcast seriously. Take the warnings that we're getting from many of these nations seriously. We are in trouble. And they're saying to us, you've got to come out of this thing well, because we'll all lose if you don't. And I believe we will. The Countermand Amendment, I do believe, is the vehicle that the Lord has given us for the purpose of restoring our constitutional republic. And I'll talk more about that in a little moment. But right now, I would like to invite comments from Mike or Kelly or even Sandy. Mike, why don't you start off and tell us what you have on your mind?
Well, Charles and I are about 10-year difference. But both of us are prior military. He's a squid, and I'm Air Force. But the
squid.
You're welcome. I just had to get that in there. But the commonality that Charles and I and millions of other people, men and women, my wife included, because she was active duty Air Force as well, we all fought against the great Satan, against the great evil that was the Soviet Union. Ronald Reagan called it, and he called it right. And he was right when he said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. He was right when he called Brezhnev, evil and the evil empire. And we won. We beat them. We beat them down, and we changed history. And what Charles is saying about what Putin, of all people, Vladimir Putin, one of the harshest KGB guys there is, the guy that just invaded the Crimea, that just thumbed his nose at America with the Ukraine, that just turned around and took power over when we should have been taking care of Syria, and when we should have been doing some things with Syria that could have actually made a difference. And Putin is preaching to us because we have a president of the United States that is so anti-Christian. And I know there's a lot of people that say they believe he's a Muslim. And I tell you, I do too. I honestly believe it. Because the thing is, once you're a Muslim, you can't renounce your faith without getting your head cut off. And I think he really has. I think he has not renounced his Muslim faith. And that's even okay. And from the standpoint of the First Amendment, that's okay. We all have the freedom of religion. We can choose our own religion. But this guy's taking it to the next level. And we got Harry Reid, and we got Nancy Pelosi, and we got George Soros. And these all people are the evil. They are the new evil. And Putin has even figured that out. That just, to me, is mind-boggling from a Cold War warrior, from Vietnam through Desert Storm. Go ahead, Charles.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciated those kind and poignant comments. Kelly, would you like to add something to this?
Well, what concerns me is, like you said, this has been ongoing for decades, and it has been an attack of our minds, our children's minds, especially in school. And I think it was one of the Pauls that said that our schools are indoctrinating our kids. They're not educating our kids, and what they're teaching our kids is not good. And the other thing, too, is I believe it was the year I was born, 1962, that they started to try to take prayer out of schools. And that was 50 years ago. And I guess my question is, did somebody get hurt living under the Ten Commandments that I'm not aware of? Because any kid that's in school that doesn't want to pray has the right not to pray with the others if they so choose. On the other hand, now all of a sudden the kids who do want to pray are not allowed to pray because of the one that doesn't, or the one that has the parent that doesn't. And it's a stealth attack against the spirituality and the exceptionalism that it means to be an American under God. I don't want to live under Sharia. Sharia is unconstitutional in and of itself. It has no business in this country. This is God's country. This is not Muhammad's country. And I agree that You know, Obama does not live by the Ten Commandments. That tells me all I need to know about him.
Thank
He
you, Kelly.
lies,
I
he
appreciate that
cheats, he
insight. Continue.
steals. Yeah, I mean, he's just, it's obvious who he follows.
Folks, if you'd like to weigh in and call us, you can do so at 956-217-0031. That is 956-217-0031. Sandy, did you want to weigh in this conversation?
Education, Charles. It's in the
What?
education, because the secret to tyranny is to keeping people ignorant, to hiding information, so that people don't know that they are ignorant, so that they think that they're okay when they're missing out on a lot.
Absolutely, Kelly, I agree. Did someone else want to interject there on the panel?
Well, about the time they ended prayer when Kelly was talking about 62 is when I graduated from high school.
This, by the way, this is Sandy Toth, by the way, our executive coordinator. Go ahead, Sandy.
To me, excuse me, it seems so strange when the court ruled against prayer in the school, and I was brought up with it. It was, you went to homeroom, and the teacher took roll. There was a Bible on the desk. Students would rotate, picking a passage, usually from the Psalms, to read to the class. We said the Lord's Prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. And even in that little bit, no matter what religious education we had at home, you always had the Lord's Prayer in your heart. And you also had the feeling of love for your country in saying the pledge. It is so difficult to hear Russia talking about this thing, because when I grew up, we had the Iron Curtain, and my family had relatives behind the Iron Curtain in Hungary. And people donated to Radio Free Europe because people were so controlled by the communists that they couldn't get any outside news. In Radio Free Europe, they would huddle around their radios to listen to hear anything about the Western world.
Wow.
People to travel from one city to another. If you left one town, you were checking out with the guards on the road, leaving the city, and then you had to check in when you arrived at the next town. You always had to carry your papers with you. Talk about an ID. They're complaining about a voter ID here. How about have to constantly carry an ID within your own country? Because if you didn't, you could be arrested and jailed.
And checkpoints. And we've got checkpoints down here, Sandy. I'm about 10 miles from the border, and you go on a little further up the highway, about 80 miles in, you have to go through a checkpoint before you can continue on in your own country. Isn't that something?
Yeah, and it's getting horrible, and I've watched this deterioration. I can see the moral issues in the country. So many times I look and I wonder what is happening, and it's not just because, oh, I'm an old fogey, you know. I mean, just the fact that I'm on the computer at my age means I at least got some modern, you know, abilities. But the thing is that you look at the values that everybody running around buying this, buying that, me, and it just gets me so upset because I wonder where our country is headed. We are so losing everything. And we all need to think about this. We all need to think about how much we're buying our children this Christmas. Do they really need to have a ton of things? Or do we need to teach them about God, about Jesus, and the reason for the season, and take them to church? Well, I'm going to turn it back to you, Charles.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that that sharing and that insight and that wisdom. Folks, I'm going to, by the way, again, if you want to call in, 956-217-0031. I'm going to read to you the amendment, the First Amendment, and think seriously about what inalienable rights you have. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. Okay? Although that has been sorely misinterpreted by our modern constitutional scholars, so-called. The fact is, it simply says Congress is not going to be in the driver's seat when it comes to creating a religion, a Christian faith, or even a Jewish faith, or even an Islam faith. They will not be allowed to do that. On the other hand, it declares as well, or Congress is prohibited from free exercise thereof. So now Congress is not in a position to create a religion, but at the same time, they can't prohibit us from creating a religion. This separation of church and state, folks, is nonsense, and it has nothing to do with this inalienable right. You and I can worship the God of our choice, or not. And that's because our Constitution says you can. Now, it is true that many have tried to define this amendment in a way that favors the idea that religion is bad. And you just simply can't have it, religion influencing government or anything else. Folks, that is nonsense. I have had a similar experience to Sandy when I was a boy. I went into a public school number 11 in Jersey City, New Jersey, a big city just outside of New York City. And here we had every morning a Bible reading. Every morning we had prayer. Every morning we also had a pledge of allegiance to the flag under God. That's what was going on in our public schools decades past. But we have allowed these people on the left to change the meaning of what that passage means in the First Amendment, so that today most Christians are afraid to say they're Christian. Most Christians are embarrassed to say, well, you know, you'll think of me as some kind of a dummy. I don't really care what they think of me. I know why I believe what I believe. It's more than just a belief, it's conviction. The Lord has revealed himself in ways that make him real to me. And every Christian who knows Christ has that same understanding. We don't have to be ashamed of who we are in Christ. Now, the point is that Amendment 1 protects us. Now, where did Amendment 1 come from? It came from Christian men. Isn't that strange? Now, yes, there were some that were supposedly deists, and there was one Muslim among those 53 delegates, but 95% of all of them were committed, convicted Christians. And they wanted to leave for posterity a value system in this Constitution that would allow us to freely serve and worship the God of our choice, but at the same time not to deny the Christian God that made it possible. And that's what I object to when it comes to these groups that simply say that you have no right to declare that we are a Christian nation. You have no right to declare that your values are better than mine. I'm afraid I do have that right. As a matter of fact, my Christian fathers gave you the right to believe whatever you want, but they didn't give you the right to take away what we believe in. And so as a result, for Christians to have surrendered so much of their Christian heritage because of this intimidation from the left is nuts.
Well,
it's
Charles, and
insane.
It's under the guise of tolerance also.
Yes, very much
where
so.
For some reason Christians have to be tolerant. I mean, even Obama is throwing scripture at us, trying to get us to go along with his illegal amnesty. What was it about? Something about a stranger. You know which passage?
Oh, he was talking about the Good Samaritan.
Yes, that we're not supposed to oppress strangers. That's his excuse for allowing America to be destroyed. I mean, there comes a time when there are certain things that cannot be tolerated.
Not only that, there comes a time when we aren't going to be able to tolerate it. You know, we can liken that example, Kelly, to a family, a father and a mother, and let's say they have 3 children. But let's assume they're in a neighborhood and there are all kinds of children who are coming from broken homes. And they start coming in that front door and they say, look, we want to join your family because we see that you've got, better food, you've got better this. And all of a sudden they've got 50 kids in that front door and they all want to be part of that family. Well, guess what's going to happen? That family isn't going to function. And so as a result, you have to say, wait, we've got 3 to take care of now. We'll help you, but we're not going to let you destroy us.
Right.
And that's what's going on in our nation today. We've got, at this point, I think there's at least 20 million illegals in America. That would be my guess. And here, this black liberation Muslim in the White House, he says that with the stroke of his pen, he does it nefariously by allowing the Department of Homeland Security to use funds it has in order to pay. That's something new that's being developed right now, by the way. At another time we might be able to talk about it. I don't have enough detail. But at any rate, the Department of Homeland Security is now being looked at as the way in which these illegals will be financially taken care of. Don't ask me how that happened, but it's a backdoor trick that they have done. And it's all because of this so-called executive order, which really was never an executive order. But at the same time, regardless of whether it's the Department of Homeland Security, whether it's an executive order, our Countermand amendment can rescind it. And all we need are 30 states out there to say, hey, this law that you are imposing on us, making all these people legal that don't even belong here, we are going to rescind it by countermanding it. It's no longer a law, and the president has no power in that area, nor does Homeland Security have any power. That's right. How powerful the Countermand Amendment is. Folks, you've got to go to the website, countermands.us. You've got to find out how you can help us. Click on the amendment, Countermand's amendment. Read the amendment. I'm going to share a little of it in a moment. But at the same time, find a way to help us. We need state directors. We need supporters. We need donors. Yes, we always need some money. We have a lot of traveling to do, especially Mike, our national director, and myself. But at the same time, we need you to realize that this is your constitution that you're surrendering by doing nothing. God has given us an answer that this nation needs. We need to make it happen. Okay, go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, just go ahead and visit our website at www.counterments.us. You can go there, you can donate, you can purchase Charles's book, you can volunteer. But definitely you need to learn this strategy, and you're going to need to teach this to your kids, okay? Because we have a huge mess to clean up, and honestly, I don't think I have enough life left to get all the way through this. We are going to have to show our legislators the power of the countermand, because once our legislators have this countermand, they're going to be able to rein in this bloated federal government. We can stop the Common Core. We can stop Obamacare. We can stop the federal land grabs, the EPA, the IRS, all of the alphabet agencies. Charles, last time and right now Obama's threatening, give me my amnesty or I'm going to shut down the government, right? Did I hear that right?
Pretty much,
last time they shut it down, all of a sudden 800,000 unnecessary government employees were out of work. Okay, think about that for a minute. 800,000 unnecessary government employees. Why do we have 800? I mean,
why do we even need 800,000?
Exactly. Please shut the government down.
Kelly.
Yeah.
Kelly.
Yes.
on that, the last government shutdown, all those people that were laid off were considered non-essential.
Exactly.
They were not considered mission essential.
Mm-hmm.
And for an example, here in Alaska during that shutdown, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, the federal, and BLM, they all of a sudden said, "Oh, wait a minute! It's hunting season in Alaska, and it's doing this, and oh, you can't be on these federal lands because we don't have any people out there to enforce the law." Because those people, the Fish and Wildlife Division and the BLM, were non-essential. They were furloughed. That tells you a whole lot right there.
And it also tells me that I don't need the BLM to go and visit the woods.
No, you don't.
Exactly. And Charles, before we go to break, would like to touch on one thing you said, and that is our Bill of Rights that our founding fathers enumerated our inalienable rights on. They just put it in writing what we all were born with. You kind of touched on it on the freedom of religion. We can choose to believe in a God. We can not choose to believe in a God. It's where the atheists have got this wrong. They keep on yelling and screaming separation of church and state. There is nothing in that First Amendment that says that you must believe in a God. And there is nothing in that First Amendment that puts a penalty for you not believing in a God. That's your choice.
Yes.
I disagree with you if you say that there's not a God, but that's your right. And your freedom of speech right, and freedom of religion right, and your freedom of assembly right on down the line. You can choose to or not to.
Yes, and now that's turned around where somehow you're not allowed to pray if you want to. No one is going to stop me from praying. If I'm out somewhere I want to pray for my dinner, to bless my food, I'm going to do that no matter where it's at. And it's a shame that our kids aren't allowed to do that. But we're going to take a short break, everyone, and we will be right back. Stay tuned.
Check out our website at www.cprworldwidemedia.com and our Facebook page at facebook.com/CPR Worldwide Media.
Citigold is an account from a global bank with over 200 years experience, offering international banking expertise across over 100 markets. Your dedicated investment consultant adds a unique personal touch to your banking experience. Complimentary lifestyle offers like Marhaba service and free global money transfers help you save on time and money. At the core of Citigold is your dedicated relationship manager, personally looking after your financial needs. Be it lifestyle privileges like golf, lounge access across the Middle East, or worldwide privileges, Citigold provides you with a rewarding experience. One card is all you need for all your Citibank accounts. As a Citigold client, you benefit from our international expertise and global reach. Citigold is more than an account. It's a personal banking service offering exceptional privileges, customer service and recognition worldwide. So wherever you are, Citigold will be with you.
The design of the Ford Escape is clearly intended to grab your eye. And your foot. Huh, ain't that a kick? The Ford Escape with the foot-activated liftgate. Go open up something interesting. Go further.
Come on, Harry! Dumb and Dumber 2 is the #1 movie in America.
Am I right? What?
Seriously, it's #1.
Insane. These guys are morons! I like her a lot.
Dumb and Dumber 2, rated PG-13. Now playing.
However dark the night, however dim our hopes, the light is always there within you.
His family gave him hope.
You fight harder than those other guys, and you win.
His spirit gave him strength.
We're gonna die out here.
We're not dying!
And in his darkest hour,
Who is the Olympic athlete?
his faith would not be broken.
Hello, Mother and Father. This will be the first time in 2 years that you'll have heard my voice. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Your loving son, Louis.
On Christmas Day, experience the unbelievable true story of one man's journey home.
You can take it. You can make it. Just gotta believe you can.
If I can take it, I can make it.
Unbroken, rated PG-13, Christmas Day.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Welcome back, folks. This is Charles Kacprowicz with our team, Kelly Gordon, Mike Coombs, and Sandy Toth in the roundtable. I am the Executive Director of Citizen Initiatives and the Countermand Amendment. We've had a good discussion dealing with the value of human life, dealing with the reasons why we have different types of governments in the world. We have the ruler's law, which is a monarchy, or it could be an aristocracy, it could be an oligarchy, it could be a dictatorship, a tyranny, and it's always for the purpose of getting everybody underneath in that country under the will and rule of the ruler. And then we can have anarchy on the the other end of that continuum, which is the way the founders looked at government. And that becomes tyrannical. All of a sudden, you have no rulers. You have no direction. You have broken families. You have economic collapse. You have military collapse. I mean, everything about it is anarchic. And as a result, it can't survive. So what did the founders do? They said, look, we have to create a government that allows the people to rule. And then the people will actually put blocks in the way of the government moving either to the too big or the too little direction. The people in the middle will be able to say, this is as far as you go, and we're going to vote you out of office. That's why we have 3 branches of government with checks and balances. The problem is the people have fallen asleep, and we've allowed the government to get too big. And because we are trying to satisfy our own appetites because of the proclamations that are made by politicians to get your vote, we have surrendered many of our rights, and we've allowed them to steal from us. And now we're sitting back and we're saying, wow, what can we do about this? How can we address it? I mean, look at what's going on. There's pornography everywhere. There are unholy families being developed. There are all kinds of immoral practices that are going on. I mean, have you looked at our young people today? They look like Aborigines out of Africa. Did you know that 100 and some years ago, we sent missionaries to India and Africa to help them know that this body that we have is the temple of the living God, that it's to be used for God's purposes? It's not to be marred. Even in Exodus, we're told it's not to be marked in any way. And yet today, they've got rings in their noses, they've got bells on their toes, they've got clips, they've got clips in their lips, they've got tattoos that cover their entire skin. I mean, it's insane. We've become a heathen nation, and a heathen nation that says we are not answerable to God anymore. Well, folks, I'm telling you, whether you believe it or not, you are answerable to God. You will find that God has the final say. And I believe he's giving us one more chance to see this nation turning to being a God-fearing people. And I think the vehicle that he's giving us is the Countermand Amendment. And that Countermand amendment is extremely important for this time in America's history. I want to read to you two sections in the Countermand amendment. For those of you who have not heard me address these matters before, or to read these before. Section 1. The article restores state sovereignty in our constitutional republic by providing state legislatures countermand authority. Section 2. State legislatures in the several states shall have the authority to countermand and rescind any congressional statute, judicial decision, executive order, treaty, government agency's regulatory ruling, or any other government or non-government mandate, including excessive spending and credit, now this is almost the balanced budget, imposed on them when, in the opinion of 60% of state legislatures, the law or ruling adversely affects their state's interest. When the countermand threshold has been reached, the law or ruling shall be immediately and automatically nullified and repealed. This countermand authority shall also apply to existing laws and rulings. Now what happens? The federal government, whether it is the Congress or the courts, the Supreme Court or the executive, or whether it's the EPA or the BLM or the IRS, when they put a regulation together, when they put a law on the books, when they make a court decision and it has a negative impact on the states, they will write that law in a way that's amenable to the interest of the citizens in the states and in such a way where it won't get rescinded. So in effect, the Countermand Amendment forces the federal government to treat the states as partners in government. Now, rather than subjects to federal mandates. Now understand this, and there's a tremendous misstatement about just who the legislatures are. State legislators created the federal government. The federal government did not create state legislatures. Remember, the states under the Articles of Confederation were nation states. They all had equal rights, and anyone could hold the other 12 hostage just by refusing to vote in favor of a particular project or amendment. And they had great power. With that, they had sovereignty. Now, in their collective wisdom, they said, we need a federal government that functions under the articles that didn't function. And they decided to create the Constitution. But they didn't create the Constitution and the federal government at the same time to dominate them. They didn't make the federal government so that they become subjects of the federal government. They made the federal government so the federal government would be amenable and answerable to them as sovereign states. That's how the republic is supposed to work. Now, today, what do we have? Well, it's true, the legislators left us Article 5. They left us a vehicle by proposing amendments to modify the federal government to actually change what it is required to do, because if the states ratify a particular amendment, then the federal courts and the Congress and the executive branch and the regulatory agencies all are obligated to obey it. Now, the federal government is subject to the state legislatures today under Article 5. And I would like to add this thought to those who think that somehow the state legislatures must first have a proper relationship with Congress or the courts or delegates that go to the convention before they can actually propose an amendment. That is garbage. The fact remains that when the federal government is given an amendment, they are under a mandate to obey it, and it's created by the states. The states, according to these other arguments, would have to do something like this. They would have an idea, they would decide that the idea needs to be put in the Constitution, and in our case it would be the Countermand, but they know, according to the groups on the other side of this issue who I disagree with, they know that they first have to get Congress's permission before they can propose this, or before they can convene a convention. Then they can go forward and try to amend. Now, for them to think that they must first get the court's permission or the Congress's permission or anyone else's permission before they can amend the Constitution is utter nonsense. The best that you can say for Congress under Article 5 is that they are a facilitator of doing the will of the states. That is, they convene a convention. They decide the quick times for the convention. In our case, the application requires them to do it within 60 days. They also determine maybe the location. Okay, that's all right. They're facilitating. But they can't stop the states from having the convention. The convention is determined and ordered when the 34th state completes an application on Congress for the purpose of convening, in this case, the Countermand Amendment Convention. Now it becomes an order. It's a mandate. Congress really has nothing to do other than to obey. That's because the states are sovereign. Now, with that, I would like to ask Mike Coons if you would please help explain the different documents and the process that we are using in this Countermand Amendment initiative.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. This comes down to two simple resolutions. The first one is the application to Congress, and the wording of application is not asking Mother May I. It's a statement of fact that we're applying for a convention, for an amendment convention, for the purposes of proposing the Countermand Amendment. That's all that application does. And then that goes to Congress. It is put in the register, the Congressional Registry, and then upon 34th state making that same application, that's the key point with this, that we have to have all 34 states with the same application so it is clear as Alaskan mountain stream that everybody is on the same page of music, and that's exactly what we want. That's the first resolution. The second resolution is the delegate resolution. The delegate resolution is the thing that sets citizens' initiatives apart from everybody else in the Article 5 community. With this delegate resolution, the very first whereas is under Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution, this convention shall be a Republican form of convention. What does that mean? That means it's a majority rules. 51% is all it takes. So thus, we only need 26 states or more to do this resolution. We really prefer 34, but the minimum standard would be 26. And then it goes further on to say that all states shall have equal standing. What does that mean? Very simply, one state, one vote. Then the second whereas talks about that the state delegates, the delegates that the states send down, are ambassadors to the state legislature. What does that mean? That means that when this is finalized, then those delegates, when they go to that convention, they are bound to the state legislature. They cannot breathe unless the legislature tells them to breathe. They are going down there for one thing and one thing only, and that is to vote on this Countermand Amendment, which is part of the delegate resolution. The rest of the delegate resolution lays out the very first aspect of it is the state legislatures, because they're busy, they will form a joint committee of the Senate and the House to oversee the delegates. That way, it's not only just to oversee the delegates, but answer any questions that the delegates may have while they're at the convention. And then the state legislature empowers that committee to make decisions to assist the delegates. The rest of the delegate resolution lays out the process. That lays out how the president is, what the duties of the president of the convention is, what the committees are, what the delegates' duties are, the oath that the delegates take, the duties of the alternate delegates, because there are alternate delegates, because if a primary delegate becomes sick or ill or decides to, well, we're going to join with Bloomberg, they can be recalled and that alternate take its place. Then we have the Countermand Amendment that's embedded into this. The reasoning for this is because then this whole delegate resolution with the Countermand Amendment embedded in it is what is going to be debated at the committee hearings, what's going to be debated on the floor of the Senates and the Houses across this fair nation. And when that Countermand Amendment is approved by 51% of the House and the Senate, then that is given, and when that goes down to the convention, those delegates have got one thing and one thing only to do: vote yes on that amendment. That is the pre-approved language for the Countermand Amendment. And all we need is 26 states or more, that's 51% or more, to say yes to the Countermand Amendment at the convention. Then from there, once that has happened, that goes back to the Congress. Then Congress sends that completed Countermand Amendment to the states, back to the states. Again, state sovereignty. It's a circular deal. It starts with the states and it ends with the states. For those states to ratify the Countermand Amendment, and that's where we need 38 states. And let me be very clear. We have 38 states that are energy producers in this nation. We have 38 states that have had land ripped out from underneath them and being told that they can't utilize their land. Alaska being one of them. Utah just being hit really hard just recently. Utah and Colorado, 1.4 million acres to stop fracking, all to supposedly protect a non-endangered grouse. So that is why we truly believe we can get those 38 energy producing states that will ratify this thing. Once that is done, again, the sovereignty aspect on this is phenomenal. Because like Charles said, the states are the ones that made the federal government. It's not the other way around. And the states start this and the states end this. And like Charles said, the Congress is more or less just a facilitator in between. And Charles, before I turn this back over to you, I'd like to relate a little something that happened to me this last couple days.
Go right ahead.
One of my sponsoring House member who is sponsoring the Countermand Amendment, we had a meeting the other day, and she came to kind of the idea that maybe I need to start looking around for a person that's 180 from me. I'm a strong conservative. So she was wanting me to find a good, strong liberal that liked the Countermand Amendment, that could see the value of the Countermand Amendment from both sides of the spectrum. So we sat there for about 15 minutes throwing out names. Well, they're too liberal. They're too far to the left. No, that won't work. That one won't work. And so I was driving around town the other day, and I happened to see a lady that I know. She's to the left of me quite a bit, but we have a good relationship. We talk to each other in a reasonable manner. So I stopped and I talked to her about this. And she said something that just struck me. And that was that the states were the ones that gave up their sovereignty because they needed the federal government to fix the ills of society.
Wow.
That blew my mind. And that told me right there that although this Countermand Amendment truly is a nonpartisan amendment, that everybody can utilize this thing in an effective manner where where we regain our sovereignty and our freedom, the individual sovereignty as well as the state sovereignty, that the left is so far off base that there is nobody. This is the only person I really knew that I thought I could really maybe do something with. When she said that, that just hit home to me how far they have gone from what our founding fathers did, not only envisioned, but did in writing our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. And I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I'm glad you brought that out. The fact is that these people, many of them, do not understand the states' rights issue and the sovereign deliberative status at all. However, there's one thing that I want to bring to our attention, and that is that in this last election, many state legislatures went red. So what that tells me is that we are a growing republic of more conservative states. That's why we can win. That's why the Countermand Amendment can be ratified effectively. Now, it's true that we do have those 38 energy-producing states, and with them alone, this amendment could be ratified. But there are other states that fit into other patterns, political patterns, that will also want this amendment. Now, because we are going to be running out of time here shortly, I want to run down a quick list. By the way, there is something else I wanted to add to what Mike said. The delegates under an Article 5 convention are not equal to the founders. The founders' purpose was to create a new government, to create a new constitution, and then have it ratified and approved by their state legislatures. Their purpose was enormous, and there were some brilliant men who were in that convention. But when they gave us Article 5 in the Constitution they created, they made the delegates different. Under Article 5, first, the state legislatures restrict themselves to proposing amendments. And second, the delegates don't create a new document. Their purpose is not to create a new constitution, but instead it's to facilitate the will of their state legislature. And as a result, when they go to the convention, they're not there to create a new document or to destroy it or to create a constitutional convention. That's all nonsense. They're there to simply facilitate what they've been instructed to do by their legislatures. What are some of the areas that the Countermand Amendment can apply to?
Well, Charles, I can think of one right now.
Go right ahead.
The amnesty, the illegal amnesty. Right now, there are 20 states that are wanting to file suit. Sheriff Joe has got some type of a restraining something. He's trying to stop this amnesty thing. And if I like to imagine that our state legislatures already had the power of the countermand, because I know in my heart that Obamacare never would have made it. When it only takes 30 states to say, you know what, guys, that's really bad. You're going to have to take that back to the drawing board and talk to us later. Because that's just not going to work.
It would have forced the Democrats to actually work in coalition with the Republicans on whatever they wanted to create. It wouldn't have been the Obamacare bill that came out of it. You're right.
That's right. It's going to modify the federal government's behavior towards the states.
Well, I'm going to run down a quick list here for the audience to consider before we run out of time, dealing with issues that can be addressed. Yes, the illegal immigration thing, this recent order, and the Department of Health and the Department of Homeland Security is now responsible for funding. The fact is that that can be countermanded, whether it be by the president or by the department. It doesn't matter. The states can countermand it and rescind it. How about taxation? You feel like there are sometimes some issues of taxation that really are burdensome to you in the states? That can be addressed. How about criminal laws? I am particularly interested in my own case of the maximum, mandatory minimums that the federal government has. And they're being applied in such an unjust way. And we're destroying our male population, especially in the black community, because so many of them are going to prison for things that ought not even be felonies. How about violations of our enumerated rights in the Constitution, which we addressed a little while ago? They can be addressed. How about identifying, protecting unenumerated rights in the 9th and 10th Amendment? And now all of a sudden the states have the power to not only nullify, but define what those unenumerated rights are. Absolutely fantastic. I am encouraged by that in a great way. How about energy policies, healthcare, social issues, federal land grabs, court decisions, congressional budgets and deficits? I'm afraid Harry Reid won't have the power with the Countermand to do what he did by adding $1 trillion a year to our debt. With the Countermand, the states can say, we won't accept that. Executive orders can be countermanded and rescinded. Issues dealing with education, unfunded liabilities, EPA, BLM, IRS, DOJ, and more. So we're talking about a very, very serious amendment that can restore our constitutional republic and do it in a way whereby states retain their sovereign authority. Now, folks, we have...
And Charles?
Yes.
Charles, before you... Yeah, I know. I understand. And if we'd had it today, the headline on Fox News right now, race against the clock, House leaders strike budget deal and punt on immigration, would not have happened because they would have known they would have 30 states breathing down their neck to countermand this
absolutely.
week.
Okay, folks, I have the custom of closing with prayer, and I would like you to join me. We're going to just let the Lord know that we are looking for him to guide and direct. Man devised this way, but God directs his steps. And so we are trying to depend on the Lord's leading in every way we can. So let's go to prayer. Lord, we are grateful for your presence. We thank you that we can come boldly, and we can do so through your Son, Jesus Christ. But Lord, at the same time, we come because we have needs. We are incapable of carrying this great work forward with the Countermand Amendment and the Article 5 provision. We are incapable of making this a success without your support, your strength, and provision. So we are asking that you will do just that. Lord, there's a nation that hangs in the balance. I believe that there are babies that hang in the balance. I believe there are souls that hang in the balance. I believe that we can return to being God-fearing people one more time. But we need to put the authority back into the state legislatures. So we are looking to you for help. We're thanking you for what we've done. Lord, we've already have 15 states that have agreed to sponsor this amendment. That is phenomenal. But Lord, we need 34, so we're asking you to provide them. Make this next year be a super year so that we can get this ratified in 2016. And we surely will give you the praise. And we ask it through you.